take the half a log and I cut off this section here to give me a place to put the tenon on the band. I do that on a bandsaw. I'm going to take a template, 9 inches, lower the bandsaw to a safe height. I center it, get it balanced on each side. In this case it's 9 inches, 8 inches would be too small, 10 inches would be too big. Then I mark it with this little bird cage awl that I use dedicated for holding these templates down. And then I cut that out on a bandsaw. Flip the blank over, mark the center, and drill a 5/16 hole for a woodworm screw. Or you could do this on the drill press, your choice. This is going to be the top of the bowl. When I cut the log in half, I tried to go right down the center, crossing the pith, and I came pretty close. Probably even better to cut the pith out, but if you know you're going to turn the blanks very soon while they're green and not let them give an opportunity to crack, you can go ahead and cut it right down the middle. And then you can turn away any excess when we're on the lathe. Let's see how we'd cut a log. Let's say we got the end of the log looks like the pith, like this. The pith may be off center a little bit. That's okay. Generally, if the pith is off center, you get your largest bowl like this, but it's going to be lopsided. So you're going to either cut directly through the pith, and that works well for many logs if you're going to get to them quickly. But if you don't get them right through the middle and you get the pith a little offside, you've got a risk of it cracking. But if you're going to do it quickly, you can turn away that excess on the lathe. Next thing I like to do with a chainsaw is cut the ends off. I failed to do that this time, but you can do that on the bandsaw depending on the size of your blank. And then you've got a couple of options here. The other way to cut it, which I often do, especially on larger blanks, is I will cut about 2-inch section out of the middle, like that. You throw this middle part away, and this other part right here, you've got 2 spindle blanks. You know, that'll be at least 2 inches, because you want to give yourself about a 2-inch gap here, and that way you'll get you know, spindle blanks you can set aside for ornaments or boxes or something of that nature. You still got room for a large bowl. The other possibilities, you could cut it off here and have a smaller bowl and use this for a platter. Now, for the initial mounting of this bowl blank, as I say, I'm going to use a woodworm screw, but you could use a faceplate. This happens to be mounted on a block of wood, so I'm not taking it loose. This is a 3-inch came with my Powermatic lathe. I have turned 60-pound blanks with it. It's only 3 inches across. Ideally, if you have a blank bigger than, say, 10 inches, you'd probably want to get a larger faceplate. And that works fine, but I just find this takes longer and doesn't provide any better hold than a chuck if done a woodworm screw, as long as you stay within the limits. The limits generally is a blank no more than 10 inches. This one is, again, about 9 inches. And it's no more than about 4 inches high, which this one falls within that range of 4 inches. So this is well within the range of a woodworm screw. Now, what I prefer, if I am going to use say a faceplate, or not going to use a chuck, I prefer to use a faceplate ring. This one is about the same size. These come with the Record Power SC4, but you can usually buy them for most chucks. It's a dovetail, so it mounts on, it locks on your chuck very, very strongly. The beauty of it is when you have, and they have a larger one that would handle. This is a 5-inch. I think that's right. Yeah, this is a 5-inch. So even if you were very, very conservative, you could put a 15-inch diameter blank on it, which would be a pretty big bowl. But if I think more reasonably, or not as conservative, but still within the safety range, you could go a bit bigger, probably as big as this Powermatic would hold. The advantage of having a blank like this, instead of trying to thread this on your spindle with a 50-pound block in your hand and running a chance of cross-threading your spindle, when you have one of these mounted mounted, you just lift the blank up, and if you can get it onto your chuck, then it will hold it, and at that point in time you can go ahead and hold that blank on there and secure this. So that's the advantage of having a faceplate ring. Just about every chuck comes with a woodworm screw, and they're all similar, some better than others. They project out as much as 3/4 of an inch. The key is where the chuck jaws are. That's on the middle of the jaw glide. That has got to rest, in this case on this Record Power, against this flat spot. To make it a little easier to spot, because sometimes it's kind of hard, especially if you don't have light on, I put some marks on where the flat spots are, so I can visually see a little bit easier, and have those marks line up with basically the screws. Then the key is you pull it forward. Some documentation doesn't emphasize that, but you have to pull it forward so it registers on the back of the jaws, because as you turn it, it's going to pull this forward, and if you've got it pushed back and then you're turning this on and under pressure, this thing can easily work its way loose. So pull it forward, tighten it up, and tighten it up. I always keep a candle wax handy. I put a little paraffin on there, make it a little easier to screw it on, and more importantly, screw it off. I'm going to use this extra wood collar I turn that matches this. It's elevated a little bit over the jaws, so the blank is going to fasten against this, and the wider that support is the stronger hold you're going to get on a woodworm screw. Now, when this thing is moving, this tends to flop, so that's why I generally don't get real brave doing this under power, because it flops out of the way. I do the spindle lock and give it a final secure. And I don't turn it as hard as I can, or you have a possibility of stripping out that screw. But normally, if you just make it snug, that thing is going to be very strong. And you know, you can grab it and jerk it around a little bit just to make sure. Many days before I get started, I will spray a little WD-40 for a little lubricant on here, just so everything slides nice. But I don't always do that, especially with dried wood. But in this case, with red oak, let me tell you, if you don't put something down, it's gonna stain no matter what. It's just a question of how easy it is to get that stain up. So spraying a little WD-40 and just put a little light coat on there and spreading it around makes everything slide well, but more importantly, it does make it easier to clean up, as you'll see at the end of this further along when I go to clean it up. So putting a coat of paste wax is a good idea. It makes everything slip and slide, and it's going to resist stains. This Shield product T9 works very, very nice to put a wax coat on it. I've had this before I even got into turning, so I've had it for many years. It goes a long way because I don't use it a lot. Just put on a light coat of paste wax, rub it on, let it dry a little while, and then rub it out. So now I bring up tailstock support just as an extra safety measure so that thing won't come loose, and that'll keep it secure. If it should slip or the screw should strip, which almost never happens, it's not going to go anywhere because this is going to keep it in place. Then I'm going to bring up the tool rest and get it fairly close, spin it, make sure nothing rubs. I've got it where the cutting edge of the bowl gouge should be above center. That puts tool rest slightly below center. So I take off my wedding ring, put on my face shield. Make sure everything is fastened down. Everything is locked. Headstock, tailstock, banjo, tool rest. And now I can go ahead and stand out of the line of fire. And then I can slowly bring it up a little bit. I'm not going to go much more than about 600 initially. And now I'm going to start about back here, back where the tenon might be. Just start removing a little bit of wood, a little bark. Sometimes I'll do a left-handed push cut. Drop it a little further back. Now once I've got the edges knocked off, I can go ahead and bring the tool rest closer to parallel. And now I can speed it up a little bit. I can safely get this up to about 1,000. I'm not going to cut all the way to the end because you have a tendency to hit unsupported grain. With the fibers going this way, there's a chance this will rip out if I keep going. So I'll wait until I get to this end and I'll start bringing it back. But I've got some more to go. And I'm going to go ahead and put a tenon on it. So I'm going to mark roughly where the tenon is going to be. And that's probably going to be pretty close. It needs to be below, in my case, below 50 millimeter. And that's right on the money, 50 millimeter. So now, if you're going to turn it, if you're going to turn the bowl blank green and do it twice turn bowl, leave the tenon a little large. You're not going to make an optimum tenon, you're going to make a larger tenon, because when you go back after it's warped a little bit and you go to true it up, you don't want it to get so small that you can't hold it in your chuck. So I'll make it a little bit bigger than this because this is going to be a twice turn bowl. I'm going to rough it out and set it somewhere in a paper bag to dry for a couple of months. Now because I drilled that hole mistakenly on this side, I want to go ahead and remove some of that tenon. Now, to ensure that I've got a tenon that matches my jaws, in this case I want a parallel tenon because I'm not going to be using a dovetail set of jaws on this. I want to get my detail gouge so I can get in there very carefully and cleanly to make that shoulder clean. And then I look at it this way and see, do I have it canted in or out, and I need to clean up that corner just a little bit better. Then pull it back. I want a flat surface here, 90 degrees for the chuck to rest on. Now I can come back and reshape this a little bit, like a little more. Bring it curved down a little bit. Okay. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a shear scrape to get rid of some of the tool marks. Drop the handle a little bit. Get that tool rest a little bit closer. I've still got a little bark on this side to get rid of, a little bark on that side, so I'll take one more pass. And I don't need a perfect surface here since it's going to be a rough turn bowl, so that's going to be close enough. Now, because I've got a little excess here, I'm going to go ahead and take it off before I turn it around. I'm using a 5/8 inch bowl gouge. That's the diameter of the bar. If this was a Robert Sorby, this would be called a 1/2 inch because the British measure across the flute. go. So I'm going to go ahead and come back and do the back side before I turn it around. I could wait, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now. So now I'm going to be cutting it where I won't be tearing the grain out. Now it's time for me to wrestle this off. I generally put the spindle lock on, but sometimes the chuck, it'll actually start unthreading the chuck. But I will grasp this, and in this case it's coming off easily. Maybe because it's green. I've had some where basically it just wouldn't come off easily, and you had to take the woodworm screw off and use a wrench to get the woodworm screw out. So there's that. I may have made the tenon too large for this set of jaws, in which case, not a problem. I'll just grab it with some slightly larger jaws. Here's where I scream and curse, because it won't fit in these jaws either. Alright, so I put the woodworm screw back on, thread it on. That's one thing about a woodworm screw, is it will thread on and run pretty true, because it's going to follow those same threads. Usually when I mark the tenon, I usually use this live center, and I can put a pencil right here, as I showed you before, and draw. But what I'd forgotten was this is not the live center I was using. I was using this live center, and it's quite a bit larger, so it put me up here. I still need to get in there a little cleaner, but I'm going to use this again, this spindle detail gouge, where I can get in a real. It's pointier, and it got a lot of strength to lean over the tool rest. If you want that inside corner to be 90 degrees and very clean with no debris, so check that carefully. Okay, now I can go ahead and take this thing off. You want those chuck jaws absolutely flush up against the wood. You should not be able to get a piece of paper between the chuck jaws and the base of the wood. Otherwise, you're going to get vibration. I can't stress enough getting the tenon to match the profile of your jaws. And if you're not sure what the instructions call for, read the manufacturer's instructions. Just the other night, we had a demonstrator at the club demonstrating turning a hollow form. He had a set of Nova jaws, or record power normal jaws like I've got mounted, and he was picking up vibration, and he didn't understand why. And I didn't want to correct him in front of the group, but it's because he cut a dovetail. And a dovetail will not hold when the manufacturer says cut a parallel tenon. So do it the right way. Most jaws are dovetails on the outside, but record power, Robert Sorby, the new Rikon chucks, and the Nova chucks, the normal jaws, have a tiny little micro dovetail, but you don't cut it for a dovetail. You cut a parallel tenon. I don't always do it. Sometimes I drill a depth hole. I mount a 1/4 inch drill bit into a handle to do that. Don't use anything bigger than a 1/4 inch, or you'll get too much torque and it's liable to spin in your hands. 3/8 is way too big. 1/4 inch is just a good size. And I can look down on it and measure it, and I can see I go almost the full depth. Maybe a 1/4 inch before I hit the handle is the right depth. I'm going to slow the speed down just a little bit. And then clear chips when it starts bogging down. Alright, first I'm going to remove this waste here down to that original level I cut that got me well past the pith, where it was had a potential for cracking. So let me go ahead and do that. Get some big shavings doing that. I'm doing this side grain, and this cuts very easily. If I tried to push across, I'd be going into end grain, and let me show you how much tougher that is. sometimes you'd have to do it that way, but in this case it's a lot easier to go straight in on this where I've got this wood to remove. When you're turning green wood, it will compress on you. Once you squeeze it and it relaxes a little bit, sometimes it gets loose, so periodically you've got to tighten up. Okay, now I can start hollowing. I'm going to get a little bit out of the middle. Also can speed up a little bit. And you got to let the wood come to the cutting edge. Here's the bevel. I want to come in with that bevel straight in, flat, in order to bite. Otherwise, it'll have a tendency to skate on me. Like that. Once you create a shoulder, it's pretty easy to control the cut. Opening the flute. Now with green wood, a general rule of thumb is for a rough turn bowl, make it 10% of the size. So in this case, somewhere around 3/4 to 7/8 of an inch. And I'm about 1 1/4 inches, so I've got to come down a little bit. I'm going to switch to a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. And I'm just following the inside to match the outside profile. Now I'll get rid of some of this excess wood going straight in like I did before. Use my digital calipers here, see thickness. It's a little thicker down here. I also want to round this edge just a little bit. Now, I like to verify the bottom, the depth. So I made a depth gauge. And then I can set it flat against here and look down it and see where the end is. And I'm just about where I need to be on the depth. I just need to get rid of some of the excess wood through here. And sometimes the easiest way to do that is with a scraper when you're cutting all that end grain. Now, I need to raise the tool rest just a little bit. Incline it in for a little more support. Because with a conventional scraper, the handle needs to be higher than the cutting edge. So if the cutting edge is here, the handle needs to be up, so lower the tool rest. And that feels pretty good. Get a little bit of a lump here. And there's our rough turn bowl. So let's take it off. It feels pretty good, pretty uniform. Yeah. Several months from now, I may not remember what kind of wood this is, although I could probably recognize this as oak. So I like to use a felt tip pen and mark the species. So in this case, I'm going to put RO, red oak, and I'm going to put the month. And normally, I don't need to put the day on it, just the year. Sometimes these things sit around my shop for years or out in the garage. So now I'm going, before I put it away to dry, I'll usually seal the inside with some wax emulsion. When I talk about wax emulsion, it's something like this brand name of Anchor Seal. It doesn't dry up very fast. I keep some in this jar with a permanent brush in it. Just makes it real convenient. Brush never dries out. And I'm just going to seal the inside because the smaller area on the inside, again, I'm just going to hit the end grain up along the edge on both sides. The inside dries faster. This forces the water to leave through the outside, so that works out fine. That's about all I need to do in my climate. Your climate may differ. I'll usually leave this out for a few hours before I'll wind up putting it in a paper bag and putting it away where it won't get a lot of airflow. After a few hours of wax emulsion dry, just slip it in a paper bag, roll it up, put it in a quiet spot. So now let's do a little cleanup. And I can't stress how important this is if you're using a wood with a lot of tannins such as red oak. And it's important if you have a shop that is not air conditioned, where you have very high humidity, because that's going to make the situation even worse. This stain is typical of what you get. If I turned more than one bowl, it would have been much heavier. So I'm going to clean it up the same way I did before. I'm going to just use a little WD-40. Some people like to wax their beds down before. That's good, a good approach too. I generally don't have to worry about rust in my shop because it's air conditioned, so I don't get as fussy with that. So I've got to really pay attention when I use a wood such as red oak with high tannins to clean up afterwards. And besides the bed waste, get underneath on the inside to clean that debris off. Also, bring your banjo back as far as it'll go. Wipe the underside of your banjo because it's going to have that same debris that's going to rust. And then extend it forward and get it underneath there. And then you're going to do the same thing with your tailstock. You're going to slide your tailstock forward and get behind your tailstock. And then you might wipe it down with a cloth. Maybe add wax to it. If you got any questions or comments, please leave them below. I appreciate your comments, and I read every one of them. And if you're interested in learning more about turning bowls, I've got a whole playlist on just turning bowls. And y'all remember, come on back, you hear?